Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone back to school committee. Hope everyone had a wonderful summer. I'd like to call to order the Monday, September 11th school committee meeting here at the Colbert School. Just before we get into the whole agenda, I just want to talk about last Friday.
Okay.
The ribbon cutting itself, middle school. I'm not sure if everybody realizes that was really 10 years in the making. There was a long-term strategic plan that started way back in 2015, where the school committee voted to move the fifth graders up from the elementary schools to the middle school and create the two academies. I'm sure people remember, I'm sure if Mr. Devon were present, he would remember that, we were teaching kids in the hallways and on stages and in converted closets. And so we really needed to do something at the elementary schools. So at the time, we were working with the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Association, on a renovation project at East Middle School. And we were fortunate enough with their help to convert that renovation to a renovation addition. So those of you know, we added an addition to East and then renovated the remainder of the building. So East is really a brand new building because every part of the building was either renovated or a new addition. So South followed. So again, I just was so thrilled last Friday when we got to do the ribbon cutting. So many people to thank. I'm not going to thank everybody, but there's so many people to thank. But most of all, I really wanted to thank the voters of Braintree who approved the funding through the debt exclusion. So with that, I know Mr. Lee was there and Ms. Mayor was there, and it was a fabulous day. So I'm very excited. So with that, we can go into public comment. Is there anybody here who would like to make a public comment? Anybody sign up on the sheets? Oh,
Hi.
Hi, Sarah, how are you?
Yeah.
It's right there in the chair.
I had it.
Oh, stand, it's up to you.
It's okay.
It's yourself.
My name is Tara Crispin, and I have 3 children in Braintree District. And my public comment was that I am just absolutely overjoyed that we have the new South Middle School for our students to go into. I think it's a testament to the drive of everybody involved in getting that project done and completed. And I really look forward to seeing all the kids come out of South, a brand new South Middle School. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right. Is there anybody online?
There is an attendee online, but neither, actually now there are 2, neither have their hand up though.
Okay. So moving in then to routine matters. Would you like to introduce?
I would love to introduce. We're welcoming back 2 of our student representatives from last year, Samantha and Anika, who I think you've all become relatively familiar with. But we have 2 new additions this year. Joining us first is Madison Ketty. And I had people write me stuff about you so I could talk about you at least a little bit. And so this comes from Madison's guidance counselor. She works tirelessly in her classes, enhances her education through classroom engagement and a passion for learning. She selflessly serves her community, and this includes her work with the Pine Knoll Nursing Center as a language tutor, Best Buddies, the 84 Movement affiliate, and volunteering to create food baskets for family in need, to name but a few. Madison is a well-rounded student who balances her extensive extracurricular schedule while thriving in the classroom. So we welcome Madison to us. You want to go one at a time? Or
Let's do one at a time and then I'll drill them. Yeah.
Next up is Isabella Hogan. Isabella, again, this comes from her guidance counselor, an exemplary student in the VHS community since 9th grade. Bella has been involved in student council, theater guild, and volunteering to help at various school-wide events. Bella's leadership qualities and character have not gone unnoticed as she was selected to represent the school this past summer at the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Foundation Seminar. She has a powerful voice and a very keen perspective of the world around her, enjoys challenging herself with rigorous coursework and advocating for her peers. And if you notice that she leaves early, it's only because she has an audition for Theater Guild at I think 7:30 or something like that. So we welcome both of you.
Welcome. May I ask, why did you volunteer to to be student reps on the school committee? Either? Madison?
I was friends with all of the student reps last year, I still am. And so they were very knowledgeable. They shared a lot of their knowledge. They talked about how they enjoyed representing the school and talking about all the student updates with you guys. So I thought that it was something I'd try to do. I did try to get in last year too. So this is like my second year trying. So
Excellent.
happy to be here.
Excellent. Madison? Oh, sorry. Isabella.
So for me, I actually heard you talking about it with Miss Troy in one of our student council
That's
group
true.
meetings, and I knew that like I wanted to get more involved in the community, but more specifically at like a higher level. And I was super interested in it. When I found out it was like I had to write an essay, I was like, oh, that's my strength. And I'm just super excited to work with everyone and to hear what you guys do, because I don't really know that much, but I'm really happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, welcome. We're very happy to have you. And Samantha and Nika, thank you very much for returning. And obviously you were great advocates and great representation last year, and you recruited a few, it sounds like. So I'm sure Anika and Samantha have probably told you that for tonight, we won't put you on the spot, but going forward, every school committee meeting, we ask for a student rep update. So talk about anything you want, talk about Theater Guild, talk about whatever's going on at the school. Because you really, this is my speech for our student reps, is you are our eyes and ears. You know, a lot of us have not been in high school for a very long time. Some of us have students in the high school, but you're really here to represent the student body. And you'll have that report usually at the end of the end of the agenda. If you ever have to leave, if you have a lot of homework or preparing for a test or have an audition with the Theater Guild, then by all means, you know, you can excuse yourself and leave during the meeting. Don't feel like you have to stay to the bitter end, because sometimes we do go quite long. Anything else that anybody else wants to add?
Welcome back and welcome to our new additions. Yeah, if you folks, as Samantha will attest, that if you have any concerns about stuff that you want to bring forward to policy and education, Kathy and I are always willing to listen and put things on the agenda and have you come in and make suggestions on how we can improve things, because again, it's your school. So great.
And if we're talking about anything, if you want to contribute to the conversation, just let me know and I'll recognize you and I'll ask you to share your thoughts or your questions. Okay. Again, welcome. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on.
Okay, that discussion was helpful because I got dropped off the call for a second. 2 seconds.
Actually, I will go on then. Are we on or not on?
I can do this alone. So we were going to have Samantha Sarantakis from BHS come and present the yearbook. She might show up late. The weather is kind of bad out there, so in case she's just running late. But just, we are back and welcome back to the school committee. It seems like I haven't seen you guys forever. Welcome back, students. I hope you had a nice summer. It's time to get back to work. But all across the district, obviously, we started up in earnest last week. And just to kind of give you a few highlights, what you see up on the screen are some pictures from a variety of elementary schools and the high school of kids back in school. I think my favorite is that mass of children on the left who might be doing line dancing, but I'm not really sure. Last week, it was a difficult way to start just because the weather didn't really fully cooperate with us. It was in the 90s in terms of temperature, but with the heat index, with humidity in some of our rooms, it was close to 100. So our students and staff were very patient with that. I mentioned in a parent square that got sent out, our teachers were just as enthusiastic at 100 degrees as they would have been at 70 degrees. And for that, we are most appreciative. As was mentioned earlier, we also had the opportunity to invite a new group of students to a brand new facility in the town, I think for the first time since 1972. So that was exciting news. You know, for the public events that occurred prior to the opening of school, I've heard nothing but positive feedback on the facility. It's beautiful. I think the architects did a great job. I think the construction company that we worked with this time around was fantastic. You know, even though we're doing some last minute punch list items, the school is open and welcoming and prepared for our students. And we could not be more excited about that.
On time and on budget.
We've been under budget. If you want to
Under
get technical.
budget. I know technically, yeah.
Which is great. And, to echo, what the chairperson said previously, this was part of a long-term plan. And I think it's easy sometimes to lose track of all the work that went on. I remember sitting in, subcommittee meetings of the middle school transition teams that talked about curriculum, and they talked about 8th grade versus 5th grade in the same building, and a host of other issues that those conversations spanned years to get us to where we are now. And so not only do we have 2 new facilities for our middle school students, grades 5 to 8, but to the point, and the major point at the time of inception, we have additional space in our elementary schools. And so that's an exciting time for all of us to get art off a cart, to get special education into appropriate learning spaces and things of that nature. So again, very thankful to the community, thankful to the other town leadership over time that has really supported these projects and brought it to the finish line. And it's exciting stuff for the community. This summer, we also had a number of roof projects that were completed. Liberty, Flaherty, Highlands, and Hollis all have new roofs on them. And again, we doing some punch list items now, but they're weather tight, which is a good thing this week because I think it's going to rain every single day. So again, we're operating. We, as I mentioned in the parent square that went out, logistically, we're transporting a great number of students across the district. So like anything, it was an imperfect stop, but we're clarifying those routes, and they'll get more efficient and more timely as both families and our drivers become more accustomed to the routes and how everything functions. Today was a better day than Friday, which was a better day than Thursday, and it'll just continue to improve. So we're open for business and excited about what the school will hold. So my little school opening bit. Good.
I just want to go, I didn't go, the approval of open session and executive session meetings, if I can just, I skipped over that before we went into, communications combinations. So
Okay.
we can go back to that.
Sure.
Approval of open session of executive session, minutes from July 17th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion by Ms. Coble-Mayor and a second by Ms. Saros. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Sorry, right back to you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you very much. Also in your packets, you will find a report on our continuing education program, on the courses that were run for members of the community that attended Braintree High School. This has been a program that has been in existence as long as I have been here. It's a great resource for members of the town, and we continue to try to build that program back up. COVID really had a detrimental effect on enrollment. But Eugene is working very diligently to get those numbers back where we want them. Also in your packet, you will find the review and summary of our Spark program that ran over the summer. Again, this past summer, we ran it at the East Middle School. There was opportunity for kids to take part in an elementary summer school program that offered 30 4-week remedial and enrichment courses. We also had, for those who couldn't commit to that length of time, 2 drama mini courses of 2 weeks each. There was even a preschool program for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds where kids could attend for 2, 3, or 5 days a week. So not only a great way for the kids to spend their summer, but also a needed resource for parents who had to work during the summer. This year, down the bottom of the paper, you can see just a flavor of how many kids we serviced. 228 students attended the summer program, 152 the K-6 classes, 40 the preschool program, and 36 through our extended school year program, which is a special education program. So again, great resource run by Marilyn Connell, but also supported by tremendous teachers from the district and the East facility staff as well. So that was a positive development. We'd also like to give a quick shout out to Thayer Academy. Over the course of the summer, we run an administrative retreat over at Thayer. They have welcomed us, I think, for the last 5 or 6 years. We take over their media center. They are a gracious host to us and treat us like royalty for this short time that we were there. It was also helpful in speaking to the head of schools there and some other leaders at Thayer. They invited us to come to one of their PD sessions before school started on artificial intelligence, of all things, which we had a small cohort of people go and attend and participate in the PD that was run by 2 professors from Harvard. which has helped to inform our ongoing conversations about the implications of artificial intelligence. So, we are hopeful that we can continue to find ways to maintain and grow the relationship between us and Thayer. There's mutual benefit to it. We have Jessica Minahan, who's a nationally renowned BCBA, coming in October, and we have invited members of Thayer to come and spend some time with us as well. So that's a promising start for us. Cradles to Crayons this year donated over 100 backpacks and supplies to our schools. We'd like to thank them. The Braintree Delta Lodge, Masonic Lodge also had a back to school supply drive where 27 backpacks were broken down by levels as well as filled with school supplies, which were distributed throughout the district. We'd like to thank worship leader Rodney Owen Sr. for that work. And then Molly Kate Sheehan from the Hair Gallery, a local business in the Salon Suite at Grove Street to Desky Palazza, had a back to school supply drive and also shared among our elementary school supplies and needed materials for our students. And so we'd like to thank them. And then my last commendation goes to our tech department. We had some internet issues in town on Friday. They spent a great deal of time trying to run down what the issue was. At the end of the story, it was a Comcast issue, which meant they worked all weekend working with Comcast to get the issues resolved and have our wireless systems back up in place for today's school day. So we thank them.
Thank you for that update. I was curious. I was going to ask about that as well.
Excuse me,
Yeah,
through the chair.
Come.
Mr. Lee, I just had a question. I see the financial statement on the Sparks. What do we do with the surplus money?
It rolls into planning for next year.
Okay, thank you.
It stays within the program.
Are there any other questions or comments about any of the accommodations? I want to thank Mr. Caruso and Ms. Cushing too for their annual report and for their work on the Braintree Community Continuing Adult Education Program. I also noticed that 25 staff members, Braintree Public Schools or BEA members, were able to take advantage of free classes that are offered through the Community Adult Education Program. And also good to see that the SAT instruction is continuing, and of course the after school music conservatory. And I see that they are operating at a deficit. The deficit has decreased. So hopefully we'll see an uptick this year in enrollment. And then also thank Ms. Cornell. Ms. Cornell was a fourth grade teacher, I think, at Morrison. My children were there and my children attended Spark many years ago. And thank her and also the school nurses and all the teachers for that program as well, because that is really a staple. I can see it continue for many, many years. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so we move on to gifts to schools. All right, we have quite a few. And as always, I'll read them all and ask for one motion at the end. Braintree High School, one deposit in the amount of $500 for the Braintree High School Veterans Club from the Braintree AARP Chapter 4042. State Textiles, gifts to schools, 9 checks totaling $541.20. Art and Music Department, district-wide, gifts of $5,019.20. 1 check in the amount of $4,919.20 from the Braintree Arts Council event Arts Extravaganza to be used by the Art and Music Department. And I hope they continue that on an annual event. 1 check in the amount of $100 from the Art Department from Heidi and Joseph Larson for the Larson Legacy Book Award. For the Braintree High School Theater Guild, 2 checks totaling $500 from Rhode Island Hospital donated to the Braintree High School Theater Guild. Manatica School Kindergarten, 1 deposit totaling $250 from the Franklin Park Zoo trip 2022-2023 school year. And for the Ross Elementary School, 3 checks totaling $4,500 from Tien Ann Temple to the Ross Elementary School. The Tien Ann Temple makes a yearly donation to Ross Elementary as community partners, where many of the Temple's children attend school. As a thank you for using the Ross parking lot for overflow parking and for advancing their common mission to educate and inspire. Do I have a motion to accept all of these gifts? I have a motion by Ms. Cobbler-Mayer and a second by Ms. Saros. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. As always, thank you so much for all of these gifts. We really, truly appreciate it. Okay, moving on to trip approval.
Again, in your packet, you will find a request, 3 separate requests for, in essence, the same type of event. Annually, we have sent groups of music students down to the Providence Bruins games, where they perform and then take part in watching the games. This happy to answer any questions you have. These are trips that we take annually, but I am looking for your approval on the 3 trips. One is on November 10th, one is on December 15th, and one is on October 21st.
Any questions or comments from the committee? This is an opportunity for our music department, our students to display their musical talents. And the parents are responsible for transporting, and the parents are responsible for supervising their own children.
That's right.
Okay, just wanted to mention that. Any other questions or comments about the trips? May I have a motion to approve? I have a motion by Ms. Cobbler-Mayer and a second by Ms. Saros. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Moving on.
So tonight, we're bringing back, I know it's been a while, but at one of our last meetings at the end of the school year, we presented to the committee the strategic planning draft for the years 2023 through 2025. We had an extended presentation at our last meeting. I've kind of refined it just down to a couple slides. As you may recall, when we talked about the previous plan, it was a 5-year plan that fell in the years of COVID. As a result, it was overly ambitious as we were derailed by COVID as it interrupted so many of the things that we were doing. A review of the goals made it necessary to take a look at what haven't we accomplished yet that we still value and want to accomplish. And so we presented to you a 3-year plan, which would allow us to pivot more quickly as circumstances continue to change and evolve. And so the draft that you saw related to that. As we had discussed, the plan has goals that could be completed over the next 3 years. But in terms of specific action steps, we would be bringing those action steps to you as a committee through the school and department improvement plans. So over the summer, while we were there, we began working on the action steps that we would want to present to you if you found the strategic plan to be favorable. And we'd again be prepared to present all of our steps to you at a November meeting in the form of district and school improvement plans. It's November because as many of you may know, school councils also have to approve the school improvement plans. So you have to give them an opportunity to meet. So in your packets and what we had presented previously is the district strategic plan for those years, and we are happy to answer any questions. This would be a second reading if you would. So I'd like to see where folks stand at this point in time.
Ms. Tuffy.
So I would just like to comment that I think that these are good goals, and I look forward to seeing what actions are taken to support these goals. There's, some of them are rather broad, which they need to be in a plan like this. But I think that they're a good starting point, and so I do have one grammatical on our values. Maybe you can look at this too, Samantha. On our values, it says, it uses the word inclusive. I wonder if that should be inclusivity.
I had the same comment.
Yeah.
That's a comment. We'll take it. We'll change the language.
Okay. Do you agree, Samantha? Okay. Thank you.
To just follow up on Ms. Tuffy's point, the strategic plan itself is broad, and because we want everybody to understand what the overall goals are, but when we bring back to you the action steps, those are specific, and we want to be very specific at that moment.
Through the chair, that's what I was going to ask. There'll be more meat and potatoes, so to speak, in this, because I think, yes, it has a good framework, but I'll look forward to seeing that in November.
Yeah, and truly the work that had been done over the summer really related to that. We spent hours looking over, I think, 84 slides of data to try to make sure we picking out steps which would lead to the type of progress we want to make. That is not this document, that is the document you'll see in November.
Any other questions or comments? So the measurement of goals and the timeframes, that's part of.
Yeah.
Okay, improvement plan. I had the exact same question.
Yeah. I don't know if you can recall the template that you've seen before, which has a category of time frame and measurement.
Okay, so those will all be shared in November. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Are we comfortable with the second reading approving this? If so, may I have a motion?
So much.
I have a motion by Ms. Coble-Mayer and a second by Ms. Saros. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for their work on this. I know it was
No, thank you very much.
months and months of work. We look forward to the improvement plans in November. Okay, moving on to administrative updates.
I'm gonna do two, and then I'm gonna ask Mr. Nazar and Ms. Kaufman to do the last one. One of the items, just to bring you up to date on our enrollments at the present time. As of today, our overall population is 5,284 students. That's down about 150 students, but we are early in the school year, so to speak. We usually do enrollments, as October as an official count. And that number has been fluctuating for weeks, but at this moment today, 5,284 is our enrollment. In the elementary level, our smallest classes are between 12 and 13. Our largest class, I think, is 23, which is a third grade class. We have a couple 20s in first grade in our elementary schools, but they're very low 20s. And if you recall, all our kindergarten classes in those same schools were at 21 last year anyway. So overall, eyeballing it looks like our average class size is about 18 in the elementary school. That's still a healthy number. And right now we have about 603 students at the new South building.
What's the largest, like fourth and fifth? Fifth is middle school now. I gotta get that out of my head. Fifth.
Yeah,
Fourth.
fifth grade. The largest fourth grade class is 22.
Really? That's
Yeah.
great. Okay.
And what has become interesting in previous years, high numbers were consolidated to one or two sites. It's spread across the board at this point. The other update I would give you, just so right before school began, we received word that the state had placed some refugee families at the Hyatt in Braintree. We sent a team over there to register any school age kids that we could identify. There turns out there are 3 students who have already started school in the Braintree schools at this point. Our food service department was wonderful. They got some food over to the families. The mayor's office has been excellent in terms of helping us follow up with the state to try to get the resources for these families that are necessary. The biggest barrier for us right now is language. The interpreter, it's Haitian Creole, which is not as easy to find interpreters for as some other languages. But at this point, we're getting it done, and it's kind of a community effort in terms of supporting those folks. Make you aware of that.
Great.
And then lastly, just wanted to have an update on transportation, and because we made a number of changes this year that I think have been beneficial. And
Yes, transportation update.
there you go.
So last school year, we completed a transportation efficiency study. So that was completed like November, December, January. We contracted with a company called Transportation Advisory Services, and they collected some data from us and came on site and did some interviews with stakeholders across the district and came up with a full report with some key recommendations that we were able to take action on this year. So part of the audit was a ridership capacity study. So that indicated that there is some room on some of our buses for consolidation and to improve the efficiency of the routes. So this year, when we were creating routes, we were able to realize some of those efficiencies. The biggest win that came out of that is that we're now able to transport directly to Manadequat. So the kindergarten students that go to Manadequat now go right from their home bus stop to Manadequat. They don't have to make the stop at their home elementary school and get on a shuttle. So that's a big win. The next recommendation was around really maximizing our use of our routing software. So we have a routing software called Traversa or Student Transportation. And the recommendation was just around making sure that all of the routes for both the big buses and the small buses were planned and managed in the routing software. So starting last year, we now have a dedicated person to create and manage all of the routes into Versa for us. So this helps us with efficiency and also makes us a lot more organized with managing bus stops and adding students. The third bullet, so he made a recommendation around cameras and GPS. So he let us know that it's become industry standard for all buses to have cameras and GPS on them. For risk management, safety, and to settle any disputes with students and drivers during the routes. So we're in the middle of contracting with a vendor for GPS. We anticipate it will be installed 2023 or early 2024, and we're still in the process of identifying the right vendor to do the cameras. He had some recommendations around the organizational structure of the transportation department. The biggest takeaway for us was that we need to be aware of when the management in the transportation office are out covering routes, because we do still have a little bit of a driver shortage. So the action item for us is that we now support and send people from central office over to make sure there's someone there to answer the phone or the radio. So principals, parents, or bus drivers that are calling have someone to answer both the phones and the radios if management's not there.
Sorry, I got dropped.
No, that's okay. I have it up. He had some good recommendations around bus registration. So there were two key things. One was that we should really be opening and completing registration in June prior to the start of the next school year. So this year we were able to open the registration June 2023 for this school year and register most of the students ahead of time. So this gives more time to do the routes and have more efficient routes. He also recommended that we needed to be registering all students. So all the students that are on the big buses and all students that are on the little buses so that we have better organization. That also helped us to have all of the student information and route information organized in a way that we were able to provide complete bus lists to principals ahead of the first day of school, as well as like pickup information to parents well ahead of the first day of school. And lastly, part of the audit was about cost efficiency. So just for context, most of the districts around us do outsource this function. We're one of the few districts that still is doing our own transportation in-house, but based on the results of this audit, that continues to be the most cost-efficient way to do this. So we will continue to operate the transportation department in-house.
So there's been a ton of work done by Mr. Naza, Ms. Kaufman, members of our transportation department. It represents a lot of change, and for a lot of families, adjusting to that change has been difficult. But one of the things that we had talked about previously that we truly wanted to see happen was getting those inadequate kids direct to school. And this has allowed for that. And that means those kids pick up about an additional hour of instruction a day. And they're not sitting on buses for hours of the day. So that was a huge win for us. We continue to refine it. One of the big pushes that we made or they made was to try to get everybody to register by a certain deadline. And we had over 2,000 families registered by the deadline we set. Understanding that this was something of a change, they've tried to accommodate late registrations and have done an excellent job doing so. But this will continue to be a work in progress because we need to be efficient. The driver shortage remains real. So maximizing our resources is essential if we're trying to get as many of our kids to school by bus as we can. And we've been, I think, very successful in that endeavor this year. So happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the committee?
Sure.
Stop there.
If we were able to get more drivers, would we be able to, have more transportation? I mean, would we be able to expand that, open it up to?
Quick
more
answer,
families?
yes. Drivers have been the biggest impediment thus far. Sarah mentioned, often both our dispatcher and her assistant are out driving buses because we don't have a driver to do it. And so when you as a parent call the depot because you have an issue and nobody answers the phone, it's because they're on the road driving buses around. So drivers would help. At some point, we would maximize the amount of buses that we have. We still have a little bit of capacity left. We targeted, as I think transporting any student in the elementary that was 1 mile or more away from the school, middle schools and high school 1.5 miles away. So being able to take a look at, is that the right distance, is really driven by how many kids can we transport given that distance. right? And if you have greater capacity, you could talk about, well, maybe it's less than a mile, or maybe it's less than 1.5
We
miles.
would consider,
We consider it.
Change.
So, again, the first goal was to get Manac direct. And that is important not only for this year, but also for next year. We've talked long and hard about an early elementary center. We have the same plan in our minds in terms of how we're going to get those kids there. But then if we can become as efficient as possible, then we can start taking a look at how do we get more kids on buses. More kids on buses is safer, more kids on buses is better for families, more kids on buses is desirable, but you have to have the resources to do it.
right, and I think that's an issue because with teenagers, I know, no, you can say a mile or nobody's walking. That means that the parents are actually more than likely driving them. So it's an imposition to be put on the parents to make sure that they got a ride, if they're not gonna walk.
Yeah.
Right,
To change that mentality too.
okay.
That's the old person me talking.
Yeah.
Any
Thank
other questions or comments? No.
Just a quick comment.
Stuffy.
Question. We have crossing guards on streets like Washington Street. There's a bunch of kids from Flaherty that walk. They have to cross Washington, am I correct?
We have crossing guard. I'd have to look at our post list. We have crossing guards and we try to bus over most of the major roads, 37 in particular. Although the town's done a lot of work around improving the crossings that do exist on Washington. There's a new light crosswalk and pedestrian button at South Street up near Cats Academy. So it is now more safe than it was previously to cross those streets. We have approximately 16 traffic supervisors spread out across the town to help our kids cross dangerous intersections.
It is a huge accomplishment to get the kindergartners on their own buses and to save that time for learning. And on the bus, do they get picked up at the same time? Does elementary and kindergarten start at the exact time and end at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. Great. One less thing to worry about for next year.
Unless
Excellent. And I know the driver shortage will continue to be a thing. And I know, as you pointed out, not to rehash, but having central office cover the phones, if those administrative people for the buses are out on the road, that would be great because I know that has been an issue as well. So thank you for all of that work. Good. Okay. All right. So now we are at the informational presentation from our representatives.
it was one.
Senator Keenan was here and can you see if they're in the hall, please?
Back there, yep.
Good evening.
Hello.
Thank you both for joining us. I appreciate it. I'm not sure if everyone knows back, and this is Representative Cusack and Senator Keenan. Senator Timilty was not able to join us tonight. And he said he had a conflict, so.
Yeah, since we got, she's actually walking into a Eastern Select Board meeting to talk about public safety buildings and legislation.
Thank you for that update. So back in May, there was a day on the Hill that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees sponsors. And Ms. Cobblemere, myself, Ms. Tuffy, and the superintendent went in and met with our state representatives at the State House. And there were many topics, and we invited them at that time to come here to a future school committee meeting and to give us an update of what's happening at the state level regarding the budget and school funding and such. So I will just open it up for you guys to give an update, and then if we have any questions, we will.
Thank you, Chair Heger, and through you to the members, superintendent, assistant superintendent, staff, and members of the public, and to our student representatives. I was sitting where you were 20 years ago, class of 2003, graduate. So thank you for your volunteers. We're here to kind of give you a high level overview of the state budget, which was recently signed into law last month. for FY 24, and also a deep dive on the Braintree numbers with Senator Keenan and Senator Timilty. It was a $56.2 billion state budget. It was roughly a $3.3 billion increase over the previous year, absorbing a lot of the funding, the federal funding from COVID and the ARPA and CARES Act, as much as we could absorb to keep programs going. In that is a $6.6 billion education budget, making our commitment to the Student Opportunity Act. And also with this budget, we had the fair share amendment for the first time, which is a surtax on incomes over $1 million. And this being a newly implemented tax, we do not have a full picture yet of a full year of what it actually will generate. Working with the administration and our colleagues in the Senate, we adopted a fairly conservative number of $1 billion in new revenue with a roughly 52-48 split between education and transportation. And the big highlight from that, as you are aware, is we are now the 7th state to fully fund universal school meals for our school children throughout the district. And that is not cheap. That comes with a roughly $171 million price tag annually to the state. But for Braintree in FY 24, we're roughly $20.6 million for Chapter 70, a roughly $1.3 increase over the previous fiscal year. And with our unrestricted general government aid, local aid number is roughly 28.1 million for the year, or a 5.5% increase over the previous fiscal year. Outside of the large pots of money, we've been able to successfully get earmarks for the town of Braintree. And the one that I know you will highlight the most here is $250,000 for mental health services for the Braintree Public Schools. That is law. You can contact DESE and start working on the contract to get that money here as soon as possible and implemented. But we're also got $125,000 for the police department's family services unit, $100,000 for the Braintree Fire Department, $100,000 for environmental emergency planning in the Fall River area of East Braintree, especially after the Clean Harbors fire back in February, $50,000 for the Braintree Community Partnership on Substance Abuse, $25,000 for the March Christmas Center, $23,000 for the Department of Elder Affairs, and $100,000 for One Life at a Time, which is a local nonprofit that does job training and recovery for people struggling with substance use disorder. Those are the real highlights from where I sit as chair of revenue. We are continuing to negotiate with our colleagues in the Senate on a tax package that hopefully this year will be the year that we get it across the finish line. But with that, I would just turn it over to Senator Keenan. But before I do, I also would like to just congratulate all of you and John and all of us who have been part of this journey to get South done. We've done East and now South. It's been a long 10 years since these conversations started with Dr. Hackett in the back room here. But to finally see it come to fruition is a huge deal for the students. As a 99 graduate of South, I said at the groundbreaking, it should have probably been torn down then, but we got it done. And hopefully the punch list is getting shorter by the day and the students are benefiting from this new environment and relieving the pressure on our elementary schools and working with all of you going forward on upgrading our elementary schools as well as high school, which is the next big one to tackle. But take a breather and congratulations on South.
Savor this one moment, yes.
Thank you, Senator.
Great, thank you, to you, Madam Chair, to members. It's great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to just kind of add a little bit onto what Representative Cusack had covered. Relative to the school building authority, one of the things that was included in the budget was that we kind of increased the baseline amount that would be available going forward from $800,000 to $800 million rather to $1.2 billion. And then the annual growth factor that would be attached to that was also increased. So the goal is to make more money available through the school building authority to municipalities so that, you know, the match hopefully be more favorable, but in any event that will allow the school building authority to take on more projects than what it has passed. And so we're very fortunate that we're able to allocate that funding because there are a lot of communities and Braintree is one that is always looking to do what they can do best in terms of upgrading facilities. There was also about $50 million, and this came out of the fair share revenue as well, that will be available for green school projects. And so we urge you to take a look at that. It's going to be a grant program and it may be available. And I know in the past that you have done some green repair work to the schools. So there'll be through the Fair Share Amendment, about $50 million more available, that type of programming. So that's good news. One of the other things, and Representative touched on it, is the Student Opportunity Act. We're in a position where we're able to fund that more than what we had anticipated. That's good news. The special education circuit breaker has been increased. The governor did reduce that in her budget, but there's a chance that it could be overridden in both the House and the Senate.
Better than a chance.
Yes, probably bet on it.
We already voted on it.
So that is likely to be restored. The McKinney-Vento account for transportation of homeless students, that has been increased as well. So there's a lot of good things that are in this budget. And I just want to touch on one that the representative touched on as well, which is the school meals program. We came to Braintree for a tour to see how Braintree is actually doing with their program of free lunches they had implemented through COVID. And I have no doubt that that was impactful and made the legislature, made the task of the legislature implementing that fully much easier. We had Representative Vega that came out.
Sorry, Vargas.
Vargas, yes.
Haverhill.
Right. That he came down, and Senator DiDomenico came down from Everett to see what was happening here, and what they saw. They were absolutely convinced that this was what should be done. They were strong advocates. The rest of the legislature joined with them, and that is a really big step. So I want to thank the town of Braintree, the mayor, the school committee, superintendent, and his team for really stepping forward on that. It had a statewide impact, and I think you take some credit for that, quite frankly. So thank you very much. I really don't have much else to add to that. We're just going to continue to advocate for additional funding for education as we go forward. In the picture, in terms of revenues in the present fiscal year, I'd say it's kind of clouded. We're not sure exactly, and the chair would have some better information on that. From my perspective, it's just kind of a wait and see. We've had some concerning indicators, but at the same time, you have to go month by month, and some months are good compared to the previous year, and then for some reason the next month may not be. So it's very fluid, and certainly the chair has much better understanding of what revenues are, but we're going to keep a close watch on them. Hopefully we'll be able to continue doing the things that we were able to do in this budget.
And to John's point on the special ed circuit breaker, which is so important in Braintree, growing costs. And we've heard from all of you and school committees across the state about the increase in the tuition. The approach in the budget was to fund it, increase the funding to 90%, but also to make sure that cities and towns are using their ESSER funding prior to come back looking for a different pot of money. And Braintree, I'll say, is one of the communities that is on the higher end of claiming your full ESSER funding. There's still some towns, for whatever reason, are only at 30-40% of what they actually have been allotted and what they're actually claiming. But I know you've been very aggressive with DESE to make sure we're getting every penny back here to the district. But we have done a supplemental budget that we haven't come to a full agreement on. That's between the two chambers. But within that is a $75 million cash reserve for special education funding as well. So we are well aware of that and actively working on that and using any vehicle necessary to get it here. As you know, you want it here, you don't care how we get it here. So that's what we're doing. Yeah, and in terms of the economic picture today, some studies came out. We're growing at about 4%, our economy. It's looking up. There's always talk of recession, but it seems more and more that people are stocking themselves into the idea that we're going into recession, but the numbers where I said revenue do not indicate that. We had a bad month back in May where when we met, we're roughly down $1 billion over projections, but that is close to roughly 165 million because the biggest fluctuator that we see in terms of revenue is capital gains. But capital gains is what we call off budget. It is not automatically deposited into the general fund. It is in our rainy day fund. And 75% of that off revenue was from capital gains. So the impact on the closeout budget will be actually minimal. And you say 165 million is a lot of money. Again, it's a $56 billion budget. We have $7.5 billion in reserve and roughly 1.7 still in an escrow account from our federal funding. So easily attainable. And as we're actively negotiating a tax cut package, that will target, help seniors, renters, childcare and dependent deductions, as well as some business credits, making us more competitive in the post-COVID economic reality of work and being mobile and adjusting to that. But we are very optimistic at the state. We've been conservative throughout COVID, which has paid off, because at the beginning we were looking at devastating losses, but we could not predict that the federal government would step up with the amount of money they have, which is flowed down to here in Braintree as well. But from where I sit as chair of revenue, I say I'm optimistic going forward. And we'll understand any other questions.
We love optimism. And we could use all the circuit breaker money we can get. Ms. Tuffy.
Yes, I'd like to thank you both for coming tonight, and I am glad that you are looking at that circuit breaker money again, because that was an issue of real concern for us. As Ms. Mtg mentioned, we visited in May, and one of the issues we talked about was funding for full tuition-free full-day kindergarten. Braintree is one of only 18 school districts in Massachusetts to charge tuition for full-day kindergarten. This year, our tuition increased to $3,715 per year, with a reduced rate of $1,858 on families. According to the DESE website, the proportion of Massachusetts children enrolled in full-day kindergarten increased from 29% in 2000 to 99.6% in 2023. Last year, Braintree's full-day kindergarten enrollment was only 87.3%, ranking us 310 out of 312 school districts in terms of the percentage of students enrolled in full-day kindergarten. Even more egregious, only 71.6% of low-income students and 81.3% of English language learners were able to attend full-day kindergarten. As a result, the 2 half-day kindergarten classes at Manadequat are less diverse and have a greater proportion of students with high needs or who require English language support. Tuition for full-day kindergarten is a de facto tax on our young families. On top of mortgages, rent, after-school childcare, and student loan repayments, our kindergarten families are being asked to pay tuition for a service that is provided for free in 294 of the 312 school districts listed on the DESE website. An initial investment of about $1 million would be needed to provide full-day kindergarten for the first year. In subsequent years, the increase in Chapter 70 state aid would fully fund full-day kindergarten at no additional cost to the Braintree taxpayers. Braintree has missed funding opportunities. We did not apply for the Massachusetts Kindergarten Development Grants that were available from 2000 to 2016, and our ARPA money went into the town's free cash account. My question to you and to Mayor Kokoros is, how can we address this inequity? How can we ensure that all of our students have access to the benefits of full-day kindergarten?
Sure. And as you just mentioned, and as we discussed back at the meeting in May, that there was a state grant program. And that's how you have 294 districts with full-day kindergarten, and us being one of the 18, because Braintree did not apply when the money was available. And I do not see a scenario where we're able to recreate a program just because we did not access when it was available. It's roughly $1 million, you said. I defer to the mayor, after John, about any ARPA funding or what other funding is out there for this. But from where we stand, we've talked to DESE. And again, the position basically from the administration is you missed the boat. This was available. This is how they did this across the state. Braintree did not apply for it.
In 2019, there were 38 districts that didn't provide full-day tuition-free full-day kindergarten. 20 of those districts now provided. And many of them use that ARPA money. So is it possible for us to use the ARPA money that's sitting in our free cash to address this? This is really, it's my youngest is 34 years old. I had no idea that our kindergarten families were being assessed such a large amount. I know when when my kids were in kindergarten, even the low income rate of $1,800 would have broken the bank. This I think is something that we as a community need to take care of, and we need to take care of it as soon as possible.
Do you want to address it?
What's that?
Did you want to address it?
I mean, we certainly could look at it. Obviously, we'd look at the entire budget. You know, I know we've had discussions. Superintendent Lee and I have had discussions about this, trying to find a way of funding it, and we'll continue to do that.
So we did recently receive another 1.2 million in ARPA money in August. Is that something we could file a supplemental budget for
There's a lot.
consider?
Well, we certainly have to take a look at the whole budget, and I don't think I could commit the 1.2 million that has been filed for reimbursement. That will go into free cash. At this time, we really have to take a look at what our budget needs are and expenses, and make sure that we have enough funding for all of our budget needs. So I could make that commitment at this point. We really would have to take a look at our budget as a whole.
Well, thank you for looking at the grant opportunities. I know it was a hard task because we did miss those grants that were available up until 2016. But I really think that this is a very bad situation that we need to address.
If I could perhaps just add something. So in the legislature, there have been those grant programs in the past. And there has been a little bit of a shift from the perspective of the legislature as to what's next. And the shift has gone into early childhood education. We are having an enormously difficult time in the Commonwealth attracting people. And I know this is outside the public school system, but for people who are looking to get their children into an early education slot with the idea then that they would transition into a full day kindergarten in the public schools. We can't find enough early childhood education folks to do that work. So some of the things that we were able to do as a result of the fair share amendment, we allocated about $25 million to reduce the wait list from eligible early education care. And then about another $5.5 million to expand pre-K or preschool opportunities on a voluntary basis for young people who will be eligible within 2 years of attending a kindergarten program. Also provided $15 million in grants for capital improvements necessary to build the capacity within our early childhood education system. We increased the reimbursement rate for center-based educational programs because we were finding it difficult to attract early childhood educators. So there's $25 million that was included in the budget to subsidize salaries, benefits, and stipends for professional development for early educators. So there is that kind of continuum of opportunity for young people. And I think I can say that in the legislature, because so many school systems now have full day pre-kindergarten, that the focus is turned to early education. And then the other focus has been what comes after K through 12. And there are some interesting initiatives in this budget, expand opportunities for nursing program students, for community college students. The governor's Mass Reconnect plan would make community college essentially free for people who are over the age of 25 who haven't been enrolled previously. It would make community college essentially free, and then say there's a program for nursing that would pretty much do this. So there's a lot of attention paid to pre-K and to post K through 12 in the budget. Because there was a sense that a lot of work had been done on the statewide kindergarten programs.
Ms. Tuffy?
Chair. So, and I appreciate that. I've been reading about the early education grants and funding. But the 18 communities who missed the boat with those earlier grants, those children that you see the educational disparity when you have only 71% of low income students enrolled in full day kindergarten in Braintree. That is not good. So I would like to make a motion that the school committee consider filing a supplemental budget to fund tuition-free full day kindergarten.
Second that.
I have a motion to file a supplemental budget for full day kindergarten.
I'd like us to consider
Consider,
in filing a supplemental budget to fund full day kindergarten.
so the motion is to consider.
So we would need to go to the finance committee first,
Mhm.
without our numbers. And then vote on it from there.
All right, I have a motion by Ms. Tuffy to consider filing a supplemental budget to fund full day kindergarten.
Starting with finance committee, looking at the numbers.
Starting with our subcommittee, our financing
Yes.
subcommittee, and we're meeting actually on Thursday. So I have a motion by Ms. Tuffy. I have a second by Ms. Cobbleman. All those in favor?
Discussion.
Up for discussion.
I'm just curious on the motion, where exactly are you looking in the existing budget, the 2024 budget for the funding?
We're looking at
Because we're in a budget right now. Are you specifically looking at using money that has been allocated for the 2024 budget?
so the fire department, the maintenance department, all filed for budgets after the FY24 budget was approved. Some of them were quite substantial, more than $1 million. We moved around some of the ARPA money to pay for overtime. I think that we should consider moving some of that ARPA money to pay for full day kindergarten. How can we justify charging our parents $3,800 a year for a service that 99% of the families in Massachusetts get for free?
Through the chair. I'm just curious why we didn't apply for the grants in previous years and how much those grants would have funded, if they would have funded the entire amount or if they would have funded part of the amount. So that's my first question. But in addition to that, the supplemental budget is something that we do as the budget moves its way through the year. And if we have needs, that's when we look to file our supplemental budget. So those are budgets that I had to file in order for us to cover overtime and some other things that had come up over the year that were unexpected, unanticipated. So, certainly, I think it's unprecedented, the motion at this time. I think that we certainly agree that we want to have full day kindergarten and we don't want to charge for it, but I think it's a matter of myself working with the chair and working with the superintendent to see how we can accommodate that. And I think that, I can't support the motion because it's something that we can do and we have been discussing for the last couple of years and was unaware of the fact that there was a mechanism a number of years ago and we didn't take advantage of it. And it's very disappointing to hear, but certainly we can continue to have conversations about it, but the budget and all of the supplements that occur, it's not as simple as making a motion at a meeting here and taking $1 million out of the budget without looking at all of the other expenses associated with every department, including the school department. I don't disagree with you that I would like to see the same thing happen, but you have to give us enough to really look at numbers. And you know, our free cash, whatever that number turns out to be the next month, to support not only costs that may exceed the numbers that we have projected, but also this year we utilized $4.2 million to cover the existing budget that we have right now. So the premature for us to take a vote on something that, you know, we really would need to take a look at and discuss and look at financially. But we can take $1 million out of the budget. And I think, you know, if the legislature at this point could help us, they would, but obviously that program isn't available. So,
Yeah. That's fine.
I think that if there's a motion on the table and it's the will of the committee, look into it, I think we're obligated to take a motion. I mean, take a vote.
And just to follow up with what Matt Kokor said, the superintendent and myself meet with the mayor every Wednesday. We're restarting those meetings this Wednesday coming up. And this has been a topic of discussion. And this has been something that we would like to prioritize in those meetings. And finance and operations, the subcommittee of this committee will certainly take it up. But a motion to consider, to ask for I think the conversations can continue. I mean, we have a motion on the table, if we can continue, but I guess my concern is it's something that we're already discussing. It's something that we would love to have in place for next school year when we open up the new kindergarten center and preschool center. I don't know that, to the mayor's point, I don't know that we have the money. And even if we considered or made it requested that the town could accommodate it, I know that they've accommodated, as you pointed out, the supplemental budgets. So the motion is to consider that the school committee's finance and operations.
Motion is to consider filing a supplemental budget or to fund tuition-free kindergarten in Braintree, with the first step being looking at it in finance subcommittee.
Good, Chair.
Of course.
The supplemental budget would have to be filed by the mayor's office, by me. And I think that, you know, I'm not sure why this wasn't discussed when we were putting the budget together. This is the first time I'm hearing of this request, and I'm a little dismayed by that. I think that if it was something that was important, it should have been brought up during the budget. At this point, we've already elected and we're already in motion with this particular budget in this school year. If the attempt is for us to work towards free tuition in next year's budget, then I think that this motion isn't really necessary. And I'm not sure what exactly, how exactly you propose to do this.
I frankly think we should reimburse the families who have paid for kindergarten this year, because using that ARPA money, and then next year our Chapter 70 money would kick in. Is that correct, Mr. Lee? That once we pay the gap year tuition, then the Chapter 70 money.
You have to go a year without charging tuition. So whether the state would recognize the reimbursement as an acceptable mechanism to accomplish that, I honestly don't know. I'm sure it has not been done before.
Right.
So to the point we have collected tuitions, almost all of them, quite frankly. So I would have to check on the state's procedures. Should we even want to consider that? So I don't even know if it's an option.
And my question just is, if we submit the supplemental budget and there is no money or there's no money for this, do we take the money from something else that we've already allotted it to, which I would never support,
I would not support that.
right?
No, I wouldn't support that either, but as I mentioned before, 20 communities who formerly have, who did not have tuition free kindergarten in 2019, use their ARPA money. I know Easton use their ARPA money to pay for a kindergarten, and Braintree's money, and I think this is a very unfortunate situation for our young families in town. We want to attract young families to Braintree. We want to all our children to have benefits of a full day kindergarten. The research says that it doesn't. It decreases disparities, and this is something we should be working for. I know that you discussed this in your budget talks with the mayor earlier this year, and I was disappointed that nothing came out of that. But I think that we need to pursue this.
Okay, I mean, I think that the budget subcommittee can certainly take this up and present something, or work with the superintendent and work with the mayor on a supplemental budget.
Through the chair, my recommendation would be to refer this to the finance subcommittee,
Right.
talk about options that we can more fully vet in a meeting like that, as opposed to kind of extemporaneously trying to do it right now.
I would agree.
Through the chair, I agree with what Ms. Tuffy is saying, in the fact that you may be talking about this behind the scenes, but we want to make sure that it's gonna be talked about, in a public forum. And that's what we want. I mean, just pursue, whether it is feasible or not.
We can certainly put it on the budget for Thursday's meeting for the,
Through the chair.
Yeah.
If we were able to fund this in this year's budget, we would have. So if that's the question, the answer is no, we weren't able to fund it in this year's budget. We were able to utilize $4.2 million, and we have a total of $7 million coming from the county. So $4.2 million is being used this year. We don't know what that number will be next year. And, we certainly have to have, a good analysis done, which we do, a thorough analysis of the budget to make sure that we provide everything we possibly can, and to thrust upon us, first of all, we don't know, even if we had the money, if the reimbursement is going to count towards next year, us getting the additional funding. That's number one. And I think that, for a member of the school committee or members of the school committee to spend money that is part of a bigger picture of maintaining our entire school department, really, it really baffles me. But at this point, if we had the money this year, we would have done it. And that's why we didn't do it. And we have had many discussions on it. I don't remember either member ever bringing this up at a meeting during the budget. I know there were a number of things that were brought up. I'm not even sure if the members voted on the budget in a positive way, but certainly, if we had the $1 million, or at one time, I think it was about 700,000 we were looking at, we had it, we would definitely use it, but we have a bigger picture and a broader budget to look at. And in the case of, funding that was used in supplement for police and fire, we had a lot of catastrophic events that created those problems of overtime. So, at this point, I think that, you can discuss it in committee if you want, but I mean, there is no opportunity at this point to file a supplemental budget when we don't have any of this information to look at. So I will not be supporting it.
Ms. Saros.
Thank you, Chair. I know you said your son 34 years ago. I'm one of the families in the last 8 years that I've been fully affected by this. This is almost $8,000 that I've spent. I moved into Braintree. My children were, when we were in Holbrook, it was free. So my oldest got free kindergarten full day. It's kind of sad that she's now 10th grade, that we still don't have it in this town. And we should have been looking at this for a long time now. And I would like for, the finance subcommittee to continue to move forward with this. We want young families to move into this town. They want that full day K. So it's what of it.
Thank you, Ms. Norris. To Ms. Coblemere's point, we need to talk about this publicly. So the finance and operation, I'm the chair of finance and operations. We will talk about this, put it on the budget. We talk about it. Our meetings are open meetings and we can continue to discuss it. Yes.
I'm not sure if this motion is in proper order because it is not on the agenda. And I don't think anyone's had an opportunity to come here to speak for or against it from the public. And, I think that it would be out of order at this point.
And I appreciate that. And that was where I was going, if you let me finish. So I think finance and operations can take it up. And I don't know that we're going to be able to put it into this year's budget, but I think we should prioritize it we are starting to talk about FY 25's budgets now. We're starting now. And this would be something that we could look at, but for next year, I don't know, to the mayor's point, I don't know. The motion is for us to consider I don't know if this is.
Well, as Ms. Coblemere said, this should be right out front, shouldn't be a private discussion and between the mayor and the superintendent and you on Wednesdays. We should be talking about this. This is a bad situation for our young families.
And I agree.
And we need to fix this. So a starting point would be to get those numbers before our finance and operations subcommittee and present that information to the full committee.
And I appreciate that. And my point is, I don't think we need a motion. I think if that is a request that you would like the subcommittee to take up, we can certainly take it up in a public meeting with the subcommittee, and we can bring it before this body in a future meeting. We have a finance and operations update, and we can continue the conversations with the mayor privately, publicly, however you think is necessary. I mean, I know this is a huge thing. I would love to see this happen tomorrow as well. But I don't know that trying to get a supplemental budget through this year is the way.
I think it's something we should look at everything, at everything. And that is why I stand by my motion. And I think we should take a vote on it.
The chair, it's not on the agenda, so it's up to you. You have to decide whether it's.
I think we should take it up with the finance and operations subcommittee this week and continue the conversation in those meetings as well as in these meetings. I don't think that we need a motion. I don't think the motion is proper and should move forward in this meeting.
So for the record, you're not allowing the motion to go forward. Is that what you're
I
saying?
think it's out of order. I don't think that it's something that we had discussed or there's something that was on the agenda. And I think we should continue the conversation in finance and operations. And I think if we need to move a supplemental budget forward, we will move it forward, but I don't think we need to do it in this manner.
The chair it may violate open meeting law by not having it on the agenda.
Okay.
Because no one had any idea that we were going to discuss it. So
We can put it on a future agenda and discuss it in an open meeting. And what the options potentially could be.
I think I've made my motion. You're the chair on this figure. So
We will continue the conversation. Anything else on the topic?
Say that again?
Anything else? Anybody else want to?
No, I have questions for our representatives, but there's a motion on the table, so I didn't really want to, deviate from that discussion, but thank you for coming here. After 107 years of a flat tax, and 5 previous failed statewide ballot campaigns. I'm thrilled that the fair share passed and that the students and the people of Massachusetts will benefit from this campaign, and that, you know, an estimated $1 billion, that's kind of conservative, right? We're hoping that it's going to be about $2 billion a year that will be given to the schools and transportation. And I know you mentioned something about environmental friendly school buildings and stuff like that. Free college, the free school meals, which is huge. And Sarah Coughlin does a fabulous job here in Braintree and with the summer meals and the FDA farmers box of stuff that she did. She's fabulous. And I know the increase in early education, this kind of ties into the kindergarten is, you know, because we in Massachusetts, we're very few towns that don't have kindergarten. Is it because it's not mandated by the state? Is that part of the problem? And how do we focus on increasing early education when we don't even have full day kindergarten paid for? I mean, these kids here, the student representatives, they were actually in kindergarten when it first passed in Braintree, when people said, you know, nobody wants full day kindergarten in Braintree. That was 12 years ago. They're now seniors. So people definitely wanted full day kindergarten. And now they should have it free. So I agree. I don't know if there's any money from the fair share that can be used for kindergarten, if that's a discussion that is talked about, or as you said, that's missed the boat and they're just really focusing on early education, like pre-K.
In the FY24 budget, the focus of the fair share amendment money as it relates to education was on early childhood education and K-12 education. There's also some focus on, as I mentioned earlier, school building authority and making additional funding available for that. But those are the primary areas where the share amendment was used to something different than what we have been able to do in the past. In terms of whether the legislature could implement a program to address those needs in communities that don't have full day free pre-K. The talking pure political terms, you have, I think it's 18 communities at this stage that are still without full day pre-K free or kindergarten rather. Have to convince 100 and therefore 130 something reps who already done it to forego that money for other communities, and you'd have to convince perhaps maybe 10 30 senators that it'd be a worthwhile endeavor, that's a priority over something that they want to do for their districts. So we could both advocate for it, but the politics of it is, we'd have to convince other people who already have it to allocate funding for it, and at the expense of them getting funding for something else. And I'm not saying that's impossible, but that's kind of the political dynamic that be at play.
Yeah, and I agree with John. Obviously, if the fair share money increases, which we think it will, obviously more money gives you more opportunity. But again, it's just by the numbers, trying to get something passed, it's tough. And a mandate doesn't work if there's no money behind it. The last thing we need is another unfunded mandate coming down to the school system. But that's where obviously keep fighting for it. If there's any additional ARPA funding coming from the county or any additional ESSER money, I think there's some unclaimed at this point. It's certainly an allowable use. I will check with DESE. We will check with DESE. But I do not think that they would entertain a reimbursement as counting for providing for free, a fully free year going forward. I think they'd want that on a prospective basis like every other community has done, and then get counted into the formula for the following fiscal year, which would be at 2026 at that point.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the state representatives? No? Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Advocating for us.
And anytime you have any questions, represent myself, Senator Tim will be free to feel free to reach out. Very much appreciated.
Not sure.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go into executive session, but I just had a couple of other updates for the committee. The superintendent's evaluation. So I've been working on the superintendent's evaluation. I have received Mr. Lee's self-evaluation. I have been preparing the rubric and the evaluation report, and I've done my own ratings and my own comments, but I will share all of that documentation with everybody for your ratings and for each one of your comments on each one of the standards. We'll compile that information hopefully this month, and if we can get it all together and have it all combined and compiled, then we will target for the October 2nd meeting to do the evaluation in an open public meeting. And then the other update I wanted to give the committee is that we've been looking at moving our school committee meetings to other schools. And we have run into some technological challenges, what we say. I don't know if you want to give us a quick update as to what John has.
The update is, we've asked John Brace and Pete Camp to take a look at what it would take to run the meetings in other schools. If you recall, when we were running them at other schools, we were not streaming them live. It was not interactive at that point. To maintain the streaming element of it requires technology that we don't have. John has gone out, he's getting quotes on equipment that might allow us to do it. He's supposed to get back to me this week in terms of the cost. We can have a conversation about how much we value this. You know, some of the estimates are about $20,000 to $30,000 worth of equipment. So we continue to work on it. If we wanted to go back to a static meeting where there's no online interaction, we can entertain that. That's what we were doing previously. But to maintain the live element of this.
Does that include Zoom as well? Is it Zoom and the YouTube, the live? Can we do neither at a site?
It would be very difficult with the existing technology that we have to do it at a site. So that is the equipment that we would be looking to purchase. You can see the setup that's in here. It'd be a mobile version of this.
Right.
And again, they're bringing to me quotes about what that cost of that equipment would be. And then we would continue to run via Zoom and via YouTube.
And I don't know if you guys remember, I think it was the first school committee meeting we did in 2021, maybe at East, and the microphones do not work well. And you know, that all of the challenges we have. So we will keep you updated as far as taking it on the road. I know it's been very important to you. It's been very important to me as well. I really want to take it on the road again.
Yeah.
But until we resolve these issues, our meetings will continue to be here.
And through the chair, is it because the Zoom element? Because I'm confused. There was 2 people online tonight?
There's actually 1, 2, and then 1 dropped off. So yeah. So
That shouldn't be the deciding factor.
well, that's for the committee to decide. But you know, as a request, and it's a very reasonable request came through.
Right.
You know, what had changed was how those meetings were getting to the public. So previously, you could go watch it on BCAM after the fact.
Right.
You know, since COVID, it's all been live and
Right.
via Zoom and YouTube.
Right.
So that's the change that we're trying to overcome. That, you know, is the chairperson described when we were at East, the microphones are very problematic. And that's going to be true no matter what school we go to. So yes, we can purchase equipment to overcome that. And if the committee really wants to do that, we can have a conversation about that.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll keep you posted. I'll keep the committee posted, but for now, we're going to continue to meet here. To be continued. We're going to go into executive session now. We are not returning to open meeting. Okay. So we will now going into executive session. So consideration to enter into executive session pursuant to Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to address a legal notification regarding Braintree Public Schools being named as a partial beneficiary to an estate, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the legal position of the school committee as declared by the chair. With that, I need a roll call vote to go into executive session. Ms. Tuffy.
Aye.
Saras. Eckler-Forrest.
Aye.
Ms. Cobbleman.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And now to go to adjourn, I need a roll call vote. Ms. Tuffy. Aye. Ms. Saras. Eckler-Forrest.
Aye.
Ms. Cobbleman.
Aye.
We are now adjourned.